IVM.
News Kids on the Block. We bring to you stories that top the nation's papers, fresh from the IVM and SN International School Desk. Hi, I'm Kavya.
And I'm Anya, and welcome back to this week's episode of News Kids on the Block.
Unfortunately, Trivik will not be with us today due to some personal reasons, but you're stuck with me and Anya for today. And I'll take us into the first story, is about a proposal by the Delhi government to build a boarding school for children from homeless families. They've proposed an amount of 10 crore rupees for this project. The Chief Minister of Delhi, Arvind Kejriwal, said, quote, "There are so many innocent children who have been forced into the act of begging. No government wants to help such children because they aren't voters. We have allocated 10 crore rupees to build a residential state-of-the-art school cum facility for the upliftment of these children." And he also added that they are in need for emotional and psychological care. So something like a boarding school specifically for them would really be a great initiative, because it's not only giving them needs in terms of emotion and psychology, but also in terms of education. And we'll be able to educate so many more people and really see what the potential of these people who aren't always given the opportunity to reach their full potential. So I think this is a really, really important initiative and something that I hope other states follow as well and other cities follow as well. Anya, anything to add?
No, like you said, I think that it is a great initiative and it's definitely a start.
Okay, I will also be taking us into the next story for the day, which is something I think that is genuinely such a simple thing that needs to be normalized and shouldn't be seen as such a taboo, not a taboo, but something so unthinkable to do, which is basically packing leftovers from food in dabbas and taking them home. There was this video that went viral of an Indian father who's packing his pasta from a very fancy restaurant into a metal dabba, and this video was shared by someone on Instagram with the caption saying, "Send this to the ones who are still embarrassed about packing up the leftovers in front of their friends or family." Like I said, this is something that has become very, people find very embarrassing to do. But at the end of the day, if you're paying for this food, why should you feel embarrassed to pack it and take it home? Plus, in this way, you'll be reducing food waste. You will be able to, and obviously packing it from your own dabbas at home, you won't be wasting plastic that the restaurant will probably use to pack your food. So I think something that should be normalized more.
Yeah, Kavya, I think that as long as I can possibly remember, packing food from restaurants is something that we've just sort of done. It hasn't been like a question mark or something like that. And food, honestly, restaurant food tastes better once it's been sitting in the fridge. I think the food marinates in itself. So even when you were telling me that you wanted to do this story, I was quite intrigued at how people thought that it was funny. And it's such a easy way to it's such a simple thing to do. You can enjoy your restaurant food. It's literally restaurant jaise food ghar pe or school mein or kaam pe. And you save the food isn't going to waste. The restaurant industry and the food industry is already producing how many millions of tons of waste every year. So I think that this is a practice that we should all adapt in our lives. With that, we'll take a short break and we'll be right back.
Ladies, I'm sure you will relate to it if I say that we are constantly busy with work, studies, cooking, and what not. And amidst all of this, we often forget an important element that needs our desperate attention: finance. So here we are, bringing to you SBI Life Presents A Sip of Finance, a women-exclusive podcast where we will teach you how to manage personal finances in a simple and straightforward way with your host, Priyanka Acharya, a finance expert who's been in the industry for 14 plus years. And not just in English, but in 7 more languages. So tune in every Tuesday for fresh episodes on the IVM Podcast Network and all major podcast streaming platforms.
Welcome back. You're listening to News Kids on the Block. I will hand it over to Anya to take us into the next story.
So the next 2 stories that we have for you are both international news stories. The first one comes from Sri Lanka, where there has basically been a critical lack of foreign currency. Essentially, Sri Lanka is unable to pay for imports of any kind, which is leading to dire shortages from anything like cement to even medicines or equipment. Because of this, there have been riots at petrol stations, severe food shortages, and overall inflation. So essentially, it's like an economic crisis, and India, as neighbors, were starting to see the repercussions of this, as many refugees have already begun to trickle into Tamil Nadu. Prices for something like milk powder, gas for like your stove, and even medicines are really, really high, and they're only increasing. Families are cutting down on milk for children, going to bed hungry because it's just impossible to afford anything. There was an instance of one village where shopkeepers divided a 1 kg packet of milk powder into 100-gram packets because the customers just couldn't afford the entire packet. This has been happening since mid-February, and the repercussions and the consequences of this have been like power cuts, even because people are unable to pay for electricity, or the government can't withstand the cost of electricity for a few hours. School exams had to be indefinitely postponed because of the foreign currency shortage, and there literally wasn't money to import paper and ink for exams. So the gist is that Sri Lanka's economy is sinking, and a lot of this is because the fundamentals of the Sri Lankan economy were already weak. And when the pandemic came along, it just made things worse. Sri Lanka, as you may know, it's an island, so it's heavily reliant on imports of goods in order to meet its basic needs. So they are importing everything from wheat to dairy to milk powder to sugar to their medical supplies. So basically, they now need foreign exchange in order to pay for these essential products that they are very dependent on to meet their livelihood. Now, Sri Lanka is also a country that depends heavily on imports, and they should have like a healthy foreign exchange reserve. But their exports have also been declining. Because the exports are declining, successive governments have indiscriminately taken foreign loans to pay their import bills and big development projects. The COVID pandemic and the waves that have come along have hit the three main forces of Sri Lanka's foreign exchange earnings, which have been goods overseas remittances from workers and tourism. The World Bank estimates that 5 lakh people have fallen into poverty since the beginning of the pandemic, and 2 lakh have lost their jobs. Economic experts have considered that the government has just taken all of the wrong steps, like banning imports of a few essential goods, tax cuts, and bad monetary policy, as well as paying to cover debts, but not buying essentials that might aid industries in turn for providing good output, which benefits the economy, and saying no to the International Monetary Fund's assistance. So Sri Lankans are really struggling right now, and the government is unable to take responsibility or accountability in order to save the economy. And the fallout of this has had a devastating impact on the citizens.
Yeah, Anna, I think it's a really devastating situation. And I really hope that soon they're able to find a more sustainable and a more efficient solution for this.
I agree. We move into the next story, which, like I said, is also an international relation story, and this one comes from our neighbor and not so best friend sometimes, Pakistan. So basically, a no confidence motion or a no confidence vote is a statement or a vote that is conducted to deem whether a specific person in power is fit to hold that position. Because and this is held if, according to Wikipedia, if the person fails to carry out their obligations or make decisions that other members feel as being detrimental. So in Pakistan's case, most recently, like I said, their current Prime Minister Imran Khan has lost the no confidence vote. So essentially, what happened is that a key coalition partner switched allegiance, so switched his party ahead of the no confidence vote that happened this weekend. So Imran Khan's party was tied with another party. That party kind of backed out, and so the majority changed. This is a really interesting fact that I read, where no prime minister in Pakistan's history has seen out a full term. And Imran Khan is facing the biggest challenge due to his rule since being elected in 2018, with his opponents accusing him of economic mismanagement and foreign policy bungling, which happened according to a article from The Guardian. So that's sort of a very, very short idea of what the no confidence motion is. It's obviously like a lot, and the motion was introduced in the lower house, the National Assembly. And if Imran Khan had won it, then he would just be dismissed along with his cabinet ministers. But in this case, he has not. So now the opposition is showing a majority in the assembly, and there isn't an election. So either Imran Khan gets impeached, or many foreign policy experts are postulating that Imran Khan's replacement will be Shehbaz Sharif, who is the former PM Nawaz Sharif's brother, and he's also the president of the opposition PMLN party. There are different reasons as to why Imran Khan is being chased out or not chased out, but essentially they're just saying that he hasn't been able to economically guide the country well, and as a result of this, he's not really fit to rule quietly. Imran Khan has not yet made a statement. We're recording this on Thursday, 31st of March, and he's supposed to speak this evening. So make sure that you read up. You might have the updates on this by the time the episode releases. But it definitely puts Pakistan in a very, very situation where they don't know what's happening. Pakistan's foreign policy is also something that is sort of under strain right now, especially given like the current tensions in Russia and Ukraine, where Pakistan has vowed neutrality, but that might change if the government changes, which then puts India in a bit of a wary situation if Pakistan takes sides. So yeah, like I said, it's just a sensitive and a delicate situation for Pakistan right now. We'll take a short break because that was a lot of fun news, and we'll be right back.
Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Storytellers and Storysellers, Vineet talks to Tanisha, Shweta and Ashish. They are the founders of the sex toys and wellness business, the Sangya Project. They recount their journey from an Instagram page to a full-fledged queer-owned business. On The Fighting GOAT, Arjun and Somesh take a look at why MMA fighters are choosing to go back to pro wrestling. Want to learn an interesting perspective on the act of letting go? On The Habit Coach, Ashton shares 3 questions that will help you forgive others. On Marathi Kit Kitun, the Deshmukhs draw a connection between the disciplines of science and literature. And on Tere Mere Raste, Keshav explores the city of Strawberry Farms, San Diego. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. And don't forget to rate us on any of the platforms you're listening to us on. Also, remember, we're on YouTube. You can check us out on ivmpodcast.com/YouTube and get a list of all the YouTube channels we have active at this point. I'd also like to make a quick note that we're doing a small listener survey, and it would really help us if you could fill that out. You can go to ivmpodcast.com/survey. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, SBI Life Insurance and India Water Portal. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Welcome back. You're listening to News Kids on the Block. I'm your co-host for today, Kavya, and I will take us into the next story, which is slightly more on the light side, about the 94th Academy Awards or the 94th Oscars. They were just as exciting as always, and we had some amazing nominees and some amazing winners. And I thought I'd take you guys through a quick summary of those winners today. So we start off with the most important award, which is the Best Picture, and that went to the movie Coda. They beat out their rivals of The Power of the Dog and King Richard. The Oscar for the Best lead actor went to Will Smith. Will Smith, who surprisingly in his very, very long career, it was the first time he won an Oscar. He won it for the Best Lead Actor for his role in the movie King Richard. And the Best Lead Actress went to Jessica Chastain for her role in The Eyes of Tammy Faye. The Best Animated Feature award went to Encanto, which really, really created a storm when it released. And the Best Original Song went to Phineas O'Connell and Billie Eilish for their original song No Time to Die. The Best Supporting Actor went to Troy Kotsur for his role in the movie Coda. And the Best Supporting Actress went to Ariana DeBose for her role in the West Side Story movie. The movie Dune won Best Film Editing, Best Score, Best Sound, and Best Production Design. And the Best Director went to Jane Campion, who won it for her direction of The Power of the Dog. And those are just some of the main award winners for this Oscar.
Yeah, Kavya, thanks for that. I'll take us into the last story for today, which is on how the Indian women's team, who, as you know, we covered this in the previous episode as well, played the Women's World Cup, and they have now been knocked out of the tournament. But they got knocked out of the tournament playing against South Africa, and I was reading a lot of different articles as to why they fell short, or what went wrong with them and what went right with them, and there was just a lot of criticism in general, as there always is. But I think that this World Cup was different because firstly it came after India was at a peak 2 years ago when we made it to 3 years ago when we went to the final of the T20 World Cup against where we played Australia in the finals and lost. And then, coming into this tournament now, we had a strong start, But what changed was the combination in the team. And this seemed to be a trend across a few different articles that I read, where the team didn't seem to be set. Shafali Verma hadn't performed in a couple of the warm-up matches, and so she was dropped from the side initially. A couple of the bowlers also didn't play all the matches. They just played 1 or 2 matches. And then Mithali Raj, who's been around for, I don't even know how long this is, and very sadly, this is probably her last World Cup. But and I think that it must have really stung for her to not win that World Cup, because she and Jhulan Goswami have just carried that dream of winning the World Cup and making something great out of women's cricket in India. And they've already done that for so many years now. Today, women's cricket is at where it is in the country because of them. And so I just wanted to use this, talk about the story, but also take a second to talk about the magnitude of the legacy that they've left behind. Jhulan Goswami did not play India's final match in the World Cup against South Africa, where they lost. And I think that would have changed a lot. And even that last match against South Africa, it was so devastating because they needed 1 run to win or 2 runs to win. And then India bowled a no ball. And that was just it. Like that, our World Cup dreams were shattered. And I think that, again, not having a proper combination, a mistake like a no ball, this is stuff that comes with experience of building a team. It comes with experience of being able to play matches. And that's where something that's a place where women's sports lacks. Because of course, I'm not even going into athleticism or comparing it to men's sport, but I am saying that the frequency and the level at which women's sport is played is very, very different. The men's season is a choco-block calendar, whereas the women's team gets maybe 5 series a year and maybe a World Cup. So I think those were some of the biggest takeaways from the World Cup. The finals will be played against Australia and England, which shall be a game to watch out for. Also, the ICC has announced that the first ever Under-19 World Cup for women will be a T20 match. As I was talking to someone about this, and they were just like, how nice of the ICC to keep it short and sweet, which was obviously sarcastic. But yes, that's how it will be. I'm quite excited for this, Kavya, mostly because I think that there've always been these memes about how Shafali Verma would lead the side, but now it could be a reality, and she's just so cool and so perfect, and everyone, my love for her is unmatched, as you know. And the other news that comes for women's cricket is also that the BCCI has announced that they might have a full-fledged women's IPL with 6 teams from 2023, which will be something to look out for, because they haven't had the T20 tournament last year, which they usually have, and this year they haven't announced anything for it either. And it really is just 4 matches the entire tournament. So it will be fun to see something like that. I think it'll give a lot of different people a chance to see cricket at a bigger level and to have that opportunity on a bigger stage. As you know, the IPL, the men's IPL has started. It is in full swing. People are bowling things, hitting things, knocking things out of the park. It is being played across Mumbai and Pune, and all teams have played once as of now. And by the time you're listening to this, a couple more teams have played each other twice.
And with that, we'll end this episode. That's all we have for you today. We hope you enjoyed this episode of News Kids on the Block.
If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other podcasts on the IVM network.
You can follow us at IVM Podcasts on both Instagram and Twitter. And we will catch you guys next week.
Until then, be sure to stay safe, drink water, and don't forget to do your homework.
Love fighting?
We've got you covered.
Check out our show, The Fighting Goat, where we, the voices of the internet, Arjun Chipalkatti and Somesh Kamra, bring to you crazy weekly action on your favorite combat show, The Fighting Goat.
Be it commentary, breakdown, predictions, analysis of styles and techniques.
And of course, your round of favorite fighters.
You can listen to us every Thursday on the IVM Podcast app, website, and all major podcast streaming platforms.
You're the people pleaser, right? Oh, yes. Or then desperately seeking the one? Oh, wait, you're the one who doesn't think they're ever good enough. Oh. So much drama. And for what? Is it doing you any good? Listen to me. I'm Chetna, your favorite positive action coach. Yes, I'm the one who has been dropping all those truth bombs on every episode. Oh, no. And it's time you learn to say no to drama. That's also what my podcast is called. And a new episode is out every Monday and Wednesday on the IVM Podcast app, website, as well as all major podcasting platforms.